I feel like a job gives you stability in life, not just financially, but mentally as well. Like you're committing to something, you're giving your heart to something. It just makes you feel whole, especially to me.
Now I'm able to be self-independent and not relying on universal credit. I'm working for myself, doing the things that I love, going out with my friends, and also just enjoying life, without worrying about finances or where my next check is going to come from. I'm really grateful for that.
Yamu and Lavender are success stories. Lavender's boss says she's a force of nature, but even she was out of work for 4 years. Today, figures show unemployment in the UK has gone up to 5.2%, with youth unemployment at a 10-year high at 16.1%. In some places across Britain, the picture is even worse. Across the West Midlands, and particularly in Birmingham, young people are struggling to find work. Birmingham council figures show unemployment for 18 to 24-year-olds is now 18.6%. That's considerably higher than the national average. The city has almost doubled the overall claimant rate for universal credit compared to other UK cities and accounts for a third of all claims across Britain's core cities.
If you look across the Midlands, right, we're one of the highest areas of youth unemployment in the country. But we know there's loads of talented people, really brilliant skills, but they're just a little bit away from the employment market.
It's not often it's a water company making waves in the employment market, but that's exactly the kind of local change Severn Trent is trying to engineer. What is going on? What has gone wrong?
I think one of the big trends we see is confidence. So low confidence leading to, multiple applications going in, not being successful. What we're trying to do is break that doom cycle that comes from applying for everything, not getting it, getting more rejection, lower confidence.
What does work mean to you?
I feel like it means everything to me because I know what it feels like to not have a job. I put pressure on myself to work harder. So when I didn't have a job for like 8 months, it felt like I was in the depths of like hell. It was so bad. Like I can't even explain to you, especially when you see like your fellow students who started uni at the same time as you, already getting accepted into like the highest grad scheme jobs, and then you're just here trying to even get into a warehouse job, and even then you're not hearing back from them.
How many jobs did you end up applying for?
Within that time, I would say from 2020 up until 2024, to when I got my first proper job, I'd say over 1,000 applications.
1,000 applications?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of applications.
It is a lot. I've learned just because you have a degree, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get that job. Also, many companies are looking for you to have experience already, but how can I have the experience if I don't have the job? It's a bit backwards, if you ask me.
Lavender took part in Severn Trent's 2-day LEAP programme, which tries to shower applicants with intensive praise and celebrate what they can bring to the table, lifting confidence, practicing interviews and breaking down the fixed mindset to one that is open and problem-solving.
I'd never had somebody that actually sat me down and be like, okay, don't say this, maybe try this out, use these examples that would work instead of what I was always doing. And it also gives you that confidence, like, oh, that person has taught me how to do this. I can even do it better because I know how to approach it and I know how to go about it.
These are stories of hope amongst a regional and national picture that looks much more bleak. In a world of growing ill health, higher taxes and an AI incursion, the government needs to find ways of replicating the Severn Trent model to turn the taps back on for young people to get work.
Maybe one day you might see me as the next CEO of another company. We all have our down moments.
Well, with me now, Emma Greenwood, who's in her final year of university and has spent 9 months looking for a job, and Alan Simpson, who's Chief Executive of UK Hospitality. Emma, give us a sense of how many jobs you've applied for and what it's been like.
Yeah, so it's basically been 9 months of probably applying to near to 90 to 100 different job opportunities and internships. The majority of the time, it's either been not hearing back from them at all or receiving really generic rejection letters, even after spending hours, if not days, doing kind of assessments, either online or in person. And as a whole, it's just been really demoralising, and it's been really difficult to keep going and to keep hope that I'll be able to afford to kind of carry on and stay in London after university.
And what a lot of people say in your position is that you don't get a sense that a human being has actually looked at the application.
And that's the exact problem. And I think as a student, you get to that point and you put in hours, if not days of work for these applications to tailor them, which is what you're told to do. And you don't get any of that energy or reciprocity back.
Alan, you know, a lot of young people work in hospitality and the jobs seem to have shriveled. What's happened?
And not just in hospitality, but particularly in hospitality. I totally recognise what you're saying from when I was young, but I know it's so much worse now. 80,000 fewer jobs for young people in the last quarter alone. That's a population of, say, Rugby. It's an entire town's worth of jobs for young people gone. And it's because tax has made it so unaffordable to hire people at the start of their careers.
Is it really all down to national insurance?
It's not just national insurance, it's business rates changes, it's the fact that VAT is so high in this country compared to anywhere else. But let's take national insurance contributions. If you earn £150,000, you lost about 20% of your pay rise this year to the change. If you earn £25,000, you lost nearly half of your pay rise. It was designed so that the less you earn, if you're at the start of your career, if you work part-time, or you're maybe coming back into the workplace after a period out of work. It was particularly those jobs that made it unaffordable. 750,000 jobs now get national insurance contributions paid on them for the first time because of this government. It really is as fundamental as that.
And so could it be fixed as easily?
Well, you can fix it by addressing the taxation on these parts of the job market. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to see yet more tax put on hospitality with the holiday tax, which is coming down the line. And we will absolutely see that the 100,000 jobs which have been lost in the last 18 months alone will continue to grow.
Emma, what are your contemporaries, going to do if they can't get normal graduate jobs?
I think that's a really difficult question. And obviously I'm from Manchester originally and I came down to London for university because this is where the opportunities are. And I think with a lot of my peers who chose to stay in the north of England, it's such a difficult market because this is where the opportunities are. And a lot of them are just having to take jobs that they're incredibly overqualified for and definitely don't pay enough for them to go and live independently. And so they're having to stay at home. And there just doesn't seem to be any kind of point of hope or point of change at the moment because the opportunities just aren't there.
And what about you?
Personally, I've managed to secure an internship, which was an incredible opportunity. But again, I think it took me well over 100 applications to get to that point.
An internship, not a job?
Not a job, no.
So do you feel you're actually embarking on a career yet?
I hope so. I hope I can get those opportunities, but I think it's incredibly difficult to take that for granted in the kind of with the job cups we're experiencing.
And if people are just sort of taking whatever jobs they can take in the meantime, that's careers delayed, is it?
Yeah, 100%.
How do people feel about it?
I think it's difficult. I think it's an incredibly difficult time to be a young person. The world is obviously very tumultuous, as we know. And it's just really difficult to understand kind of why higher level education is worth it in that case. But there's also a lack of apprenticeship and a lack of kind of further education opportunities beyond degrees. And so where do we go? What do we do? And there isn't that guidance out there.
Alan, I mean, do you think it's worth young people going to university, getting into debt, if they're not able to get jobs in sectors like yours when they come out?
Well, look, I would never discourage anybody from being ambitious, but that doesn't just need to mean university. We've just launched a 5-year apprenticeship which takes people up to a master's level in hospitality. There are other routes into substantial careers, but really for those routes to be meaningful, for jobs in hospitality to be meaningful, they do have to be available. And we are just in a situation where so many people like you are looking around for that first job that can lead to a meaningful career, and it isn't there. The interesting thing is hospitality is the single largest provider of not just jobs for school leavers, but routes into management and training for school leavers.
Right, and how affected are you by AI? I mean, people assume that sort of that hospitality is slightly insulated from technology. Is that true?
That's the good news, right? So there are absolutely sectors like banking, like insurance, like law, where the number of graduates being hired is really reduced, and that affects people in your position really severely. Hospitality is one of the few sectors which, if you take a 20, 30-year time horizon, is still going to be hiring kids at the start of their careers and keeping them throughout. But
do you think people understand that there are also career pathways in hospitality?
I hope so. I think we're a little less good at this in the UK than we are in other countries where perhaps hospitality is held in a bit more esteem. But that's our job to fix. I really hope that young people like you coming out of school, coming out of university, see us as a route to a really impactful career.
I mean, do your contemporaries think of hospitality as a career, or is it just bar work
See, unfortunately, I'd probably say they don't, which is where there's a real lack. I think there's still this push for really conventional, like high-level education, high-skilled jobs, and I think there's still the perception maybe that service industry jobs aren't that, and I think it's a big misconception that needs to be fixed, because it's also young people understanding the paths and the sheer breadth of opportunities that are open to them, and I don't think universities or, say, sixth forms and high schools necessarily do a good enough opportunity at spotlighting that.
Well, good luck, Emma. Alan, thank you very much indeed.